Unite the clans. Enoch. Let's go. Yo. Take me back to my reversion. Unite the clans, I give thanks to each person. It's that same holy water that we immerse in. It's that same tradition that we all each versed in. United we stand and divided they win. They ignited in their plans and divided they sin. If you think about it, they see us all for the same lands. Their biggest fear is that we all remain friends. I got love for T Marsh and y'all podcast. I got love for Michael Matt fans. Ryan Grant, Rick, Barrett, T Flanders, Eric Sammons. Shout out to my boy John Arrington, avoid Babylon. I got love for Anthony and Rob Speak On. If you tried, you're persecuted, the same for the weak heart. Our rules go way back before the Genesis, the Greek art, sweetheart.
Wow, Saturday morning, boys.
Yeah.
This is a very unusual time slot for us. So I had reached out to Robert because I've been catching your videos. They came up in my algorithm months and months ago. And I started catching your videos a while back, I just was so interested in the different dynamic between the American church versus the Irish church. It seems like you have all the same frustrations we do. It seems like your criticisms are very similar to ours. And then when you actually watch, if you watch things from the the typical Catholic media perspective, they kind of have a whole different angle than we because I don't know if you consider yourself a trad, but even if you don't consider yourself a trad, even the faithful Catholic these days, anyone who just believes the faith and is frustrated with the way things are going, it's pretty difficult these days.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider myself traditional. I suppose I'd be John Paul II, Pope Benedict generation. I was a seminarian in Rome, and I remember John Paul II before he went into a wheelchair, this powerhouse of a figure in the church. I speak Polish, I speak Spanish, Italian, so I've like a broad range of contacts in different worlds, and I do consider myself traditional in the sense I love traditional Latin Mass purely as a beautiful experience of encountering something reverent in prayer, but I don't have any ideological push for it, in the sense I'm not here pushing it. I'm just saying, look,
we just love the tradition of our faith.
Exactly. I love our patrimony. We have a beautiful church. We've 2,000 years of history. All of these prayers, everything that we've been adding as we journey along. It's a beautiful patrimony. Why wouldn't we want to experience it and love it and use it to evangelize? So that's my take on that.
Did you always have the faith? Did you have a period away from the faith? Did you have a conversion? What's the general arc of your story?
I would say I lost my faith after seminary, after the Legionaries of Christ. So I would have grown up Catholic. I was definitely Catholic, practicing Catholic as a teenager, as most of us did. We went to Mass, would have went on pilgrimage and stuff. And then when I was 18, I entered into seminary. A bit too immature, probably not the best move at the time, but it was just an opportunity that opened itself. Went into seminary, and I was 27 and decided, look, this isn't for me. This is, I just didn't feel I was cut for it. I used to look up to these figures in seminary. I don't know if you remember Father Jonathan Morris. He was
in my diocese.
Yeah, so Jonathan Morris, I used to.
I've been to Mass with him.
Yeah, and I said, God, I could never be like him. He's on news, and he's doing this, and he's doing that. I suppose if we'd have known then our different lives, our interior lives, we could have looked at things differently. But we've come full circle, and Father, I mean, it's not. I'm not here to criticize the guy.
Yeah.
It's look, we were landed in an organization founded by a very flawed man. So the spiritual advice that Jonathan Morris would have got, or I would have got, it wasn't from a Saint Ignatius or a Saint Benedict or one of these great fathers of the church. But it was a lesson. It's a lesson in the faith. So I left the Legionaries, and that's when I left my faith, and kind of full circuit came back to it afterwards. So
how long were you away from it? Because Rob and I both, my partner Rob, both him and I both had a period of time, not where I was ever an atheist or he was ever an atheist, but both of us lived functionally as if God didn't exist, basically, I would say.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, as soon as I left seminary, about 3 months later, I met my now wife, married 21 years, but fell completely and madly in love with this woman. And as any normal man would, you know, and kind of wife, career, family, all of that took over my life. And it's not like I intentionally left the faith, but faith just became so distant to me. It didn't really have much impact in your life. But then once you sideline God from your life, everything else that's not God will start to take over your life. So you can start to drink more, you start to travel, you know, all of these different interests that take over your life. Now, I do talk about this privately with, you know, in other groups about my own challenges. You know, I went through a 12-step program. I mean, there was a lot of brokenness in my life. I don't talk about it on my public videos because, you know, I have family and friends, and not to hurt them. But, you know, when you walk away from God, everything that's not God is going to take over your life, and it's going to, you know, and I don't think I'm any different to any other men out there that, you know, once you, if you don't have God in your life, what are you going to have in your life? What are the different challenges that men face? Yeah. And I suppose it was then Christ started drawing me back, saying, you know, come back, be a leader, help others. And I suppose what really caught my attention was the amount of men in Ireland committing suicide. And I said, why are there so many people lost? Why can't they understand? Look, if you encounter Christ, you know, there is something to change. Because even though I was distant from the church, I used to always go to confession. I used to always, you know.
It's so funny. I have that same story. Even when I was away, it's like something in me knew, like, all right, you can't receive without going to confession first. Like, I would never receive in a state of mortal sin, even though I paid no attention to the faith. And I would go to confession like once every 4 months or something. It was really strange.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I was, like, and this is the importance of formation in the faith. This is the importance of catechesis, because at least you know where to come back to. But if you never knew that, if you never know that, you've nowhere to go. So, you know, if I wanted to talk, you know, you can go into Confessor and just work things out. People that don't know the faith, have never been catechized, they're lost. They don't know where to turn to, who to talk to. So, you know, that was my journey back. And then in 2016, I kind of had this strange moment. I was where, you know, our Lord said to me, you know, renew the Eucharist, renew faith in the Eucharist. And I really didn't know what to do with it. And I was kind of talking to some priests and didn't know where to go to it. Started going to traditional Latin Mass at that moment in time. And I said, look, I'll just kneel and receive our Lord on the tongue again. I'll go to confession more and I'll kneel and receive. And little did I know that this simple act of reverence would blow up to such an extent that it would become banned, and you would be, you know, even looked down on. It's kind of strange that, you know, a simple act. And last year I was working in Singapore, and I went up to communion in a church there and asked for communion kneeling on the tongue. I was the last person to go up, and the priest said, "No, I can't give you communion kneeling on the tongue." And I said, okay. And I wasn't protesting or anything like that, but I'd made this promise, this vow to our Lord, not an ideological vow. Just, look, I was going to physically show respect to Christ our King. And it was strange because, like, 2 months later, in that same church, a cardinal published a letter, and he And he wrote to all of his priests saying, you cannot humiliate people who want to receive communion kneeling on the tongue. And I said, wow, this is amazing. 8 weeks after being in that same, that church where that cardinal writes to all of his priests in Singapore saying, you cannot humiliate people who want communion kneeling on the tongue. And it was just like something saying to me, like, there is, if you are humble and you love the faith, that humility will win through at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I suppose I want to lead people now to encounter that beautiful, amazing reality of knowing our Lord Jesus Christ, and then to bring that out to the world, because our faith, it's not a secret club. We have to bring this message out into a society, and that's evangelization. And this is the great temptation of the traditional movement, is to turn it into a secret Gnostic movement where, it's only us that have the truth. Okay, guys, be careful there in that.
You want to know what's funny? When we were going to name this video, I asked, so I said, do you think we should name it like the Remnant in Ireland? He said, Anthony, you know what? He said, every group that starts calling themselves the Remnant, they go too far, right? So Rob and I both kind of say the same thing. I don't necessarily consider myself a trad. I just love the traditional liturgy and the traditional faith, right?
Exactly.
Rob only has access to the Novus Ordo, so that's what Rob goes to, right? So it's my daughter is making her confirmation in the Novus Ordo. The parish, they let me home catechize her. I never would be. I know Steve Cunningham came up with the phrase "no salvation outside the Latin Mass." To like people that think like that really are missing something huge. It's first off, not everybody has access to the traditional Mass. A lot of people are afraid to go because they've never been introduced to it. There's a lot of reasons why, but it's about the Orthodox faith. In essence.
Exactly.
Now, I'm sure you've heard the news stories about the lack of belief in the real presence here in the U.S. How only about a third of Catholics here believe in the real presence. Have you seen a similar sort of bottoming out of belief in the real presence in Ireland too?
Yeah. So in 2018. In Ireland, we had a popular vote to legalize abortion. Yeah. So we removed the right to life from our constitution and removed all legal protections and rights from the unborn child. That vote represents exactly the loss of the real presence in the Eucharist. Because if you don't believe in the real presence in the womb, you won't believe in the real presence in the Eucharist. They are exactly the same. Because remember, our faith, if you believe in the real presence of Christ, you have to believe in the real presence, the image and likeness of God that's in another human being, even that human being in the womb. And that's this is kind of the essence of Christianity, in the sense, it's through the other, it's loving the other, even sacrificing ourselves, but loving the other, that you encounter God. So where about 30% of Irish Catholics, baptized Irish Catholics, less than 30%, I would say, that believe or know about the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. The other 70% have fallen away. They don't go to Mass and so forth. So that's the correlation. And you will see it in the States as well. You have the same battle. Yeah. If we cannot believe in the real presence in the womb, we won't believe in the real presence in the altar either. So they really run in parallel, and the loss of faith in the Eucharist has resulted in the loss of faith in respecting human life in the womb, resulted in the loss of faith in respecting the family, the roles of father and mother, and so forth. So it's sad that we've seen this all over Europe as well. It's not just Ireland. Ireland is just the latest country to cave into the secularism that's engulfing the world, really.
A lot of people like to blame the council, and I'm absolutely, the council played a role. But if you look across all Christian I mean, even if you look in the Orthodox Church, they never had a council. People in the culture just in the 60s after the sexual revolution just left and abandoned the faith. It's like, yeah, we could try to pinpoint certain things, and absolutely the changing of the liturgy had a huge part. And because even last night I was speaking to, all right, so I've had a few really unbelievable things happen in my family the past couple of days. It started with my birthday was the other day, and my father came over, and we were talking about it was me, my mother, my wife, and my kids talking about Lent. And my dad, who hasn't been to mass in about a decade, started saying things like, it doesn't matter what you could give something else up for Lent. And I just looked at him, and I was so disappointed and sad. And I was just like, Dad, you raised me to tell me your whole job as a man is to get your children to heaven, and now you're talking religious relativism in front of my kids. And it got a little heated between us. I said, I don't understand this. I said, you belong at mass with us. And I said, the reason you're talking the way you do is because you left the sacraments. And when you leave the sacraments, you lose your faith, right?
Yeah.
So then last night, my daughter had her dance competition, and it was the first time doing her solo. And she's behind the curtain, behind backstage, getting ready to go on. And I see her so nervous, and she makes the sign of the cross. And when she made the sign of the cross, you could see like a relief came over her. And I just looked, and I said, like, we don't contemplate the sign of the cross often enough. What a beautiful prayer it is. It's this simple thing. We go like this, and what we're doing is exclaiming the greatest mystery that's ever been revealed to man, that God is three persons, right? It's like that. It's such an amazing thing that only Catholics really have, and really the Orthodox. But like when you see, what's his name? Tim Tebow, when, he was a football player, and he would kneel down, and people were like, oh, he's kneeling, but there's nothing like the sign of the cross. It's such an amazing thing.
Especially because over the last 5 or 6 years, kneeling has taken on a whole different meaning from anything Christian.
Absolutely. So then on the ride home last night, my other daughter was asked me something. She goes, Dad, are we Irish? Because it was St. Patrick's Day. And she's like, are we Irish? I'm like, you don't even know our heritage. I'm like, yes, we're Irish. We have Irish in us. And then I started explaining to her where Dublin gets its name, and Dublin actually gets its name. I don't know if I'm sure, maybe I'm getting this wrong. I'm pretty sure I have it right.
I hope so, because
I hope so too, because it's a pretty awesome story where it's the Druid king's daughter Dublina died, and St. Patrick raised her from the dead. And it wound up that it was a couple of things that went on, but she was so interested to hear that story. And she's like, I didn't even know St. Patrick's Day was like a Catholic holiday like that. And then I started telling her Valentine's Day is Catholic, and all. And it's like the loss of faith in our culture, and people have just gotten so I don't know what the word is, maybe just jaded or desensitized to the Christian.
They're just ignorant of it.
But the Christian foundations of the Western civilization we live in, people are just oblivious to it. And my daughter was so interested in hearing this last night. It was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, look at our culture. When you remove Christianity, what are we left with?
Well, look, so I was like, even when my dad's saying that stuff, I said, Dad, if I don't give this to my kids, you know what's coming for them? The rainbow cult. Like, that's literally what's coming. If you don't give your children this foundation, that's what's coming for them. And I don't know a single person who doesn't raise their kid in the faith that doesn't get affected by the rainbow stuff, because it's not just, they may not become one of them, but they become so, we have this internal desire, which is intuitive because of Christianity, to want to show empathy. So there's a twisting of empathy in that rainbow movement where you want to show, oh, I care for this person. But true love means telling somebody the truth, like I did to my father that day. You can't say you love someone and allow them to destroy themselves. You wouldn't tell a drug addict to go continue in that behavior. But people want to show this false sense of empathy because it's so intuitive in us, because Christianity is literally ingrained in us. So people have this false sense of empathy, and they think that showing, this false sense of empathy to that movement is the way to show what a real Christian is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see it played out, especially in the English-speaking world. The American culture seems to be, it seems to be very pervasive. I mean, this whole debate about pronouns, which is mainly something in the English-speaking world. I mean, you don't see it, and I speak Polish, and in the Polish-speaking world, the language is gendered.
Yeah.
So if you were saying as a man, you would speak with the language you use as a masculine gender, and women the same. I mean, you wouldn't. You don't face these same issues. Whereas in the English-speaking world, it's amazing the knots we're tying ourselves up in. I don't understand it.
Now, what is St. Patrick's Day like in Ireland? Is it the same as in America? Like, is it just an excuse for people to drink?
Well, I remember being in America just before St. Patrick's Day. What was it, 2019? And in Target, you had a whole section colored green, St. Patrick's Day cards and green T-shirts and everything like that. And I was just laughing to myself. We don't even have that in Ireland. So it's
you don't have green beer in Ireland?
No way. No.
Really?
No. You might find it someplace where American tourists have arrived in Dublin.
I'm sure.
Oh no! Look, it's a bit comical in the sense, but no. St. Patrick's Day is one of the biggest days where Irish leave Ireland to go on holiday somewhere else. So it's probably one of the busiest days in Dublin Airport because it's not a holiday anywhere else. So we can go. We could go for a long weekend to Paris or something like this, and
we really do forget as a culture. We have completely forgotten like the basis for civilization. So I've been watching this show Ancient Apocalypse and it's this guy who goes around studying these ancient ruins, and every one of these ruins he goes to, he's like, it's like people just don't seem to understand that human beings are wired to worship. Mm-hmm. Like we are, if you look at all the civilizations that went before us, the Roman Empire, you look at the Aztecs, the Mayans, all of them, they made these massive these massive temples because there was something in the human being that just, I have to know where I come from. I need to know where I come from. And they were just desperately, so they're all worshiping demons because demons are real. So you have, the reason they all look like pyramids throughout the world is because it's the same demon commanding these people to build a temple to them. Now, if you see, Christianity did that too with our cathedrals, right? And then at some point, modern man decided the myth they want to follow is this myth of evolution, which has absolutely nothing like beautiful about it. So even their creation story, because modern man has a creation story. The creation story is everything's an accident. It's so preposterous. So look what you get, the most hideous architecture. You have no culture. There's nothing that brings us together, right? Like these older cultures would bring their entire society together to build a temple to a god. There's nothing we do today where we all come together to worship our God there's nothing that unites us anymore. It's really, we're witnessing the end of something right now.
I mean, that's because all of modern philosophy is deconstructive. Going back all the way to the realism of the Enlightenment, it's all meant to deconstruct instead of the opposite.
Yeah, it's just sad. I've just been going over this in my head the last couple of days because it's just like there's nothing to unite us anymore. Like, and that's what culture is. Culture is a group of people coming together around something. Like, what is holding us together? What is like cohesive about this situation right now? How do you ever build something with people who think it's appropriate to cut the genitals over children? Like, I don't understand how we're ever going to build a culture when people have such drastic different views on what it means to be right and wrong, even, right? I don't know where we go from here.
I saw something the other day in the States that there was some guy, he's well known, he's become a woman over the last year, and he was in front of this American actress, and she was kneeling down in front of him, and I was thinking, women have been complaining about the patriarchy for 100 years or 200 years, and here you have a guy making people believe he's a woman, and a woman kneeling in front of him. And I'm just thinking, if you had Donald Trump come on that program and she knelt in front of him, the world would have collapsed in horror that how could you do this, and this guy.
Well, the irony is that at least they were a like they would have been a heterosexual relationship, right? It would have been a man and a woman, and it's still. But the difference is, at least in the old culture, it would have been the man kneeling before the woman, and now you have the woman. Yeah. It's just so twisted. It's like we really are falling apart now. Robert, what is? Do you even have access to a traditional mass in Ireland now?
Yeah, no, we do. We have the Institute of Christ the King. There's the SSPX as well that some people will go to, and there's some diocesan masses, and there's a FSSP location south of Ireland. So there are, I mean, Traditionis Custodes didn't really impact Ireland that much. So to be fair, in Irish bishops, they're very obliging, and they will live and let live. I mean, so
you want to know what's funny? Because when from America, all you catch are news blips, right? So my impression, this is why I wanted to talk to you really also, because my impression of Ireland is only what they trickle out to you. And we as a culture love to tell everybody the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So what I see is there's a priest who's having Muslim prayers at his parish, but that's one parish, and you're going to get that in America too. You get these crazy liberal priests and stuff, and it's like there is still faith in Ireland, though, right? Like even though you have those crazy, the abortion nuts and all those things, you do still have a very faithful group in Ireland, I would assume, right?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, when mass was forbidden, it was rendered non-essential. I personally went to mass with 40 different priests, underground masses, which I don't blog about or tell about, but there are a lot of priests who continued to say mass and who had faith and who kept the faith alive. And I would say there are 200,000 to 300,000 Catholics who know, love, and practice the faith. Like, I'm not just saying practicing Catholics, I'm saying that know the faith in Ireland. There's a very, very strong base. And Irish Catholics, we tend to look at things slightly different. A lot of people will go to traditional Latin Mass, will also go to the Novus Ordo. We're not that divided at the moment. And it's just a different cultural scene. I mean, traditional Latin Mass as a movement in Ireland isn't that big. It's 5,000 people that would or could go to it if they could. Yeah. And so, and they don't tend to, it's different in America, where you have a very, very, very large traditional movement that is a different ball game over there. And you have the likes of Taylor Marshall, in the English speaking world, probably the number one male blogger, podcaster.
Yeah, there's so few people. Like, so if you ask anybody and you say, "Oh, how'd you find the traditional mass?" I would say 8 out of 10 people will say Taylor Marshall.
Yeah.
Taylor Marshall, 8 out of 10 people, because I mean, I don't know what your experience is, Robert, but I was also like very Catholic growing up. So I was a John Paul II, Benedict guy. So even when Summorum Pontificum first came out, nothing even dawned on me to go to a traditional Latin Mass. Like, I didn't even know there was that was the first I ever heard there even was a Latin Mass. I had no idea one existed before Summorum Pontificum. Yeah. And then it really just stayed in the background, and I didn't even acknowledge it until 2017. And in 2017, when the McCarrick scandal happened, it was like, whoa, something's off here, Like, something's off here. And I just wanted to be so countercultural that's what the traditional mass was for me. It had nothing to do with counter-Catholic culture. It was countercultural, and it was this radical thing. And when I went, there's all these young families. I couldn't believe how many young families there were. If I go to my local Novus Ordo, it's all people my parents' age. If I go to the traditional Latin Mass, it's people my son's age. Like, I'm the older guy there. It's kind of crazy, And go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say I'm sure what to you it like to me it felt like the antidote to the poison that is modernity, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like that's what it felt like
absolutely.
to me.
It was this
Yeah.
mysterious thing, right? It was like you don't know what the priest is saying up there half the time. You don't like I was so confused my first time going. I was like, what is but ironically, like I felt at home when I went. Like it was strange. I felt very at home my first time going. So much so that after I had gone 4 or 5 times, it felt more alien to go back to the new mass. It just felt more strange, like I was being put in a Protestant scenario when I went to the new mass. So now I've tried to find a really reverent Novus Ordo for when I do have to go, and I still do attend both forms though.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in the strange situation. I used to go to Novus Ordo in Latin for about 9 years. So for me to go to the traditional Latin Mass, it wasn't much of a challenge. I can understand much of the prayers, and the beauty and the reverence is really what attracted me to it. But what we saw sadly, and I've blogged about this before, is during the Trump campaign, it was almost as if the traditional Latin Mass was coupled to one particular political and for good or for worse, Taylor Marshall led that. He led
yeah, you're right. Because he jumped into the political realm during that period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that because he is a layman. And that's what he's called to do. He is called to step into that arena. He's not a priest. It's not right for a priest should not, but it's fine for Taylor Marsh. But then to tie it so completely.
Yeah, Robert, I can't believe that observation. That really is what happened. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Because I didn't realize why everybody made such a big deal about when Taylor did that, but it really did have to do with his link to so many people finding the Latin Mass through him. And it really is a profound point because the people on the left, when they saw Taylor do that, they automatically made it that this traditional mass movement had something to do with the Trump movement. And it's like Trump broke people. He broke everyone's brains. Like you really forget how, like when we talk about like when did things change, it changed with Donald Trump. Trump.
I mean, it's been 2.5 years and we still talk about it almost daily.
Every day. It's so crazy. This guy broke people's brains. It's like, what the heck happened, man? 2015 came. But I think Donald Trump wasn't he was more like a symptom than like Donald Trump came because if you look at what was going on before that, it was all the woke stuff was coming up right before him. And he like the antidote to the woke stuff. He was pushing back. You see some of the comments he made, like they wanted him to say certain words. And he goes, no, I'm going to say anchor baby. You know, like they wanted him to say, child of illegal. He's like, no, I'm going to say anchor baby. And that was the moment I knew people like I don't care what else he says. He had the nerve to like stand up to the media and say that. Like that was when I knew that the Trump movement was something very different and people were fed up. Fed up. Now, do you have anything like that in your political realm by you?
No, because our political system is proportional representation. So you vote in order of preference. So if your first preference doesn't get elected, your vote passes to the second, your second preference. And because of that, we don't have a polarized political system like America or UK, which is practically, there's only 2 parties that have ever been in power in England, and there's only been 2 parties in America. Now, both your system and our system, it has its benefits and its and so forth. But at this moment in time in Ireland, there is no Catholic party that would represent Catholic values.
We don't have that in America either, right? Like what you have is this strange, like, oh man, you have this weird conservative movement, which isn't even conservative because
it's not conservative.
They're not conserving anything. It's like, and you have this weird thing where even the people who claim to be conservative are so worried about offending the rainbow crowd that it's just such a weird thing, man. Like
I know.
It's so strange. Now, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to start speaking publicly? Like, when did you start blogging? When did you start posting videos? What was the catalyst that brought you to that point?
I think it was the Pachamama.
Yeah.
It was just after that I said, what happened there? And it was like the whole Catholic world was scrambling to understand what was going on, and nobody could give us an explanation. What exactly happened in the Vatican? And I said, I vividly remember, then Father Mitch Pacwa and EWTN, he kind of came out, and it was this moment, he said, it's a major scandal. And I know Michael Loftus, American blogger, he's kind of come out trying to redeem the Pachamama incident. He did
temper some people's
to temper it down and support. So I suppose, okay, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. But the thing people need to understand, Rome, when it says something and when it does something, it should be clear. They are leaders. The Pope is the leader of the Catholic world. And so you can't leave something open to doubt so that, we can have 12 interpretations here. You tell us what happened. Tell us what you're trying to do. And so I suppose after that, I just said, I started blogging. And I mean, this was just before COVID. And then obviously once COVID hit, I was doing some stuff that, I had so many videos taken down by YouTube and being banned and all this. I just said, wow, like really, this is where we're heading. So I suppose it was the Pachamama moment, I suppose, was questioning us what's going on. Once the mass was taken away, sacraments taken away, it really drove home. God, this is serious. This is really, really serious. So that's really where it took off. I have a full-time job. I work for a multinational company. I don't blog full-time, so it's really just a pastime. But then so many people started reaching out to me, literally thousands of people. I just couldn't keep up with people reaching out to me, especially in Ireland, saying, "Oh, you're voicing something that many people were listening to," and it's strange. Then when you start talking about stuff, and then a few weeks later, you see things changing in the church, like literally,
that you're having an effect.
Yeah, that time that I was in Singapore. And a few weeks later, a cardinal, he publishes a letter saying you can't humiliate people who want communion kneeling on the tongue. And I said, wow, that is, I said that in video in Singapore. It was, and it kind of showed, and he actually catechized saying the universal norm of the Latin rite is to receive communion on the tongue. That is the norm, which we seem to have forgotten. It hasn't been changed by Rome yet. The norm is to receive communion kneeling on the tongue, and if we don't respect the Eucharist, where will we go?
It's like, do we believe that is Jesus Christ or not?
I know.
Like, do we believe that's him or not?
You know what the polls say, so
yeah, I know.
They say that no, we don't.
Robert, do you find that most of your audience is from Ireland, or most of it is from America?
Oh, it's a massive following in America. I suppose the English-speaking world, Australia, New Zealand, America. I've tried to do a few interviews in other languages, but mainly it's Ireland, America. Anybody doing a podcast on the faith in English is going to get a following in America anyway. It's just, and then you kind of see the different areas, the different divides.
Yeah, Rob and I I think our channel would have grown much faster if we decided to critique every news article that comes out, right? Like we've very intentionally tried to do something unique here, which is we will do interviews like this, but for the most part, we try not to criticize the hierarchy so much because other guys are doing that and they're better at it than us. It's not that I think that's like you have no business critiquing it. It's just that I'm never going to be the Taylor Marshall. That he's the guy. You know what I mean? It's like, so we have to bring something unique to the table, and we've been trying to make things funny, and it's like remind people that it's still fun to be Catholic. There's still something joyful about it, and God is good. Like I know things are falling apart around us, but God is awesome, man. And if you really if you forget about Rome, and look at the blessings in your own life, like things are amazing. you know,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
with the culture falling apart around us. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's strange. When I was a kid, we used to grow up with the stories of our family. Where I'm a Nugent, I come from a Norman family that arrived to Ireland 1,000 years ago. You know, we would have been. We went on the Crusades. You know, we taught Queen Elizabeth Irish. We brought a pope back to Rome. You know, Pope Pius VII. We helped defeat the armies, Napoleon's armies, and liberated Rome, and brought a pope back to Rome. And I was just thinking, this is all the stuff the Nugents were involved in, and now it's my turn. What am I going to do to help, renew this faith? And I suppose that's the challenge that where that's given to every generation. You can sit back and say, I can't do anything. You can ask the question, what can I do? What can you do? Because we have to shine a light into people's lives. We have to shine the light, that encounter with Christ. If we've encountered him, if we know he's true, we have to bring his light into other people's lives. And I think you're taking the right direction, because we can spend our whole lives criticizing what other people didn't do and not ask, what can I do? I just think that America, you're really blessed, because you have some really good, strong Catholic movements in America.
You look at even like the Scott Hahns and the Matt Fradd, like the guys that came out of the Steubenville movement. Like, if it wasn't for those guys, I would never have learned my faith. I just wouldn't have. Like, I mean, they all make fun of me because I'm a Scott Hahn stan. Like, I love that man. I love that man. He made me fall in love with scripture. There's just so many things that my dream interview is to get him on, but that whole movement, those guys just fell deeply in love with the faith and made it their mission to, they started the Formed app, and they have all these confirmation programs and things like that. And some of them are very like Rob has some criticisms of some of the more emotional based ones, because I never was really into that, but like the Life Teen movement and things like that, where you get this emotional high, and then when that wears off, a lot of people bottom out. Which my dad went to Medjugorje years ago, had this amazing conversion, came back on a high, and then when that wore off, my father stopped going to mass. So there is some problematic things in that emotional experience, right? I mean, there's just some problems when you have that, where when you have the more intellectual foundation and you actually learn why we believe the things that we do, and you have more of a sturdy foundation to go into. It's really like the parable of the seeds. If if it falls into good soil and you have that good foundation, these things are going to plant and root, and they will become the basis of your life. And then you can actually form your whole life around these things that we actually believe, which is I said yesterday, like, I was so afraid to have teenagers. Like I remember my teen years, I was a nightmare. My parents didn't know what I was up to. They had you're a recovering addict. You could probably imagine some of the things I've always had an issue with addiction. So I got into some wild things, and I was so afraid to have teenagers. Yeah. And now I have teenagers, and I'm finding that they're so cool to talk to, because they're smart enough to grasp these deeper concepts, and they find them exciting. Like they're not, my kids aren't like, they're not dumb. Like they're actually, I can tell them things, and they actually can think deeply about, and I'm having conversations with them that my dad never had with me.
Yeah. No, that's the same with my kids. I mean, I went with my son. We did this Camino in Spain. We walked 1,500.
I want to do that so bad.
Yeah, we did it so many times. My daughter, she's studying philosophy she's 21, so is deep into all of these conversations. My other daughter, she's their typical teenager, the makeup and the fashion, and so look, everybody has to walk through life and discover themselves, but I suppose we do have a responsibility to show the beauty of Catholicism. There's another guy in America, John Edwards, just a guy in the pew. You should look him up. Very, very good guy. We've spoken, and so you're just blessed with all of the resources in America to renew the faith.
Know him, Rob?
He's in Tennessee. Just look him up. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, definitely.
brilliant work he's doing with men's apostolate. If only we had a few of you guys in Ireland to kind of bolster it up. But we can't look back. We can't just sit there. Oh, I wish we had this. We have to be the agents of change. So you have to be the leadership to lead laity to encounter Christ.
I also think all of us doing this in the public, like all of us getting on YouTube and all that, like we need to have camaraderie amongst each other and not look at each other as competition, but look at each other as brothers and try to lift each other up and really show people that like we're not an angry, bitter group. Like I'm not an angry, bitter guy. I'm really not. Like I love my faith and I love the people I've met. I mean, I've met so many amazing people doing this. It's like you have to remember why we're Catholic. We're not Catholic because we're angry at the Pope. Like I have to tune that out. I really do. I rarely pay attention to what stupid thing someone said in an airplane interview or something. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, because in the end, what matters is, are you living a holy life? Like that's really all that matters. Yeah, I'm trying to actually unite the clans, Rose, not just talk about it, but actually do it by just showing like there's a brotherhood amongst us, right? Like, are we brothers and sisters in Christ or not?
Yeah, and this is
I was going to say, I think sometimes we forget that Catholic means universal.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I'd say Taylor Marshall was there, Unite the Clans, but he was just talking specifically about the traditional movement. And you're really missing the point. If you're just focusing on them, you're missing out the whole world of Catholicism that you need to embrace. When I was working in America, I would if I was free on a Sunday, I'd go to different parishes to see how Catholicism, is lived. So I go to an FSSP parish, or I would go to an SSPX parish, or I would go to a Spanish mass where you would just have Latinos, and you see how faith is lived in America. And in Europe, you tend to have a mixture of Europeans here. So a Polish mass, we don't tend to have a big Latin American presence in Ireland, but you are so close to Latin America. You have a massive presence in America, especially when the lower part of America used to be Mexico at one stage. Before it was taken over. So, you're going to have this mixture of cultures of people. And you do see, like, I do remember going into a mass, and it was mostly Mexicans in it. And just remembering, when I get to heaven, these are my baptized brothers and sisters. I have to love them and help them and support them, because I can't get to heaven unless they're in heaven with me. This is what people forget. Heaven won't be just some exclusive club just for traditional Latin mass going Catholic. Yeah. We can't get there by neglecting our brother and sister.
I'll tell you, even all the people that are upset about immigration in America, I never had a problem with Catholic and like South American Catholic and Mexican Catholics coming across the border. I don't have any problem with that. Like, at least I can. I have more in common with. So I work construction, and I would say like 60% of my company are Spanish immigrants that came here. They barely speak English, but the little English they do speak, we have amazing conversations because they all have this deep devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. Like and I don't have that with half my American friends. Like, they don't even know. So I don't ever mind that. What I worry about is the Muslim coming across the border, because that's a different culture you're bringing in. And it's not that I don't even respect that. Like, I actually probably have more in common with some of the Muslim guys I work with than I do with the atheist people or the agnostic people that go around, because I've had some awesome conversations with my friend Obel, who's he's what is he? Macedonian. But because I order lunch for the guys, and I never order pork for him. Like, I always make sure I order something separate because he can't eat pork. And then during Ramadan, I make sure he's not allowed to eat anything during the day. But those conversations about food and stuff like that have led to him and I sharing, it's led to ecumenical dialogue. I know everybody hates that, but it led to me talking to him about some Catholic things that he had never understood before, and we found that just even having a belief in God unites us more than the people who are just so caught up in the culture and they have absolutely nothing mooring them to reality. Because it's just whatever goes, whatever feels good, it doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah. But let's not forget it, guys. This is the most challenging time in the history of the church to evangelize. It is. We are faced with the most challenging ways to evangelize, and it has to be done in a way like it has never been done before. With us trying to bring Christ into the lives of the people around us, so the people you're working with, you have to be other Christs. You have to show his that reality of that encounter with Christ to them, which, you know, in centuries past, you wouldn't maybe have done this. It wouldn't have been as possible before. We wouldn't have had contact in the same way as we do today. And I know there's tons of debate about this uncontrolled immigration. It has a lot of problems, especially when it's done. I mean, this is just the logical reality. If you destroy your, I mean, because your whole fabric of your whole society could collapse under different pressures, health system and social security, whatever, you know. But we also can't forget, you know, these are human beings. They're made in the image and likeness of God. How, as Catholics, as Christians, can we help them? Can we? Because guys, at the end of the day, you can't arrive to heaven by despising your fellow human being, or by othering them, rejecting them, pushing them across a fence, saying, "No, I don't want to know anything about you. Your plight and your problems, nothing to do with me. I have my perfect life here, and Christ will look at you, will maybe ask, maybe challenge us. You know, why didn't you help that person?" So it's a challenge. Take on the challenge.
My problem comes in when, with any person who, when we jump along these clearly ideological divides, where when you have somebody who's like, "Oh, you have to be this or you have to be that," it's very easy to love a concept of a person who you'll never come across, right? Like, it's very easy to say, "Oh, I support this group." It's very difficult to love your neighbor, though, and that's the person you actually encounter. So that's where we really have to stand out as Catholics, where when you actually encounter a person in need, that's very different than discussing an issue, because we all have our opinions on issues, right? And it's so easy to say, "Well, I'm a good person because I support X." It's like, no, it really does come down to, you know, the heart of the law is love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Like, those two things, we and Rob were talking about it the other day. Love the Lord your God covers the first 4 commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself covers 5 through 10. And it really is the heart and the meta principle that goes throughout the rest of the commandments. And it's easy to talk about issues that are far away that you'll never encounter, but how you speak to people and how you treat someone in need, that is what truly makes it, whether you actually loved your neighbor or not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've worked with 21 years of business. I've worked with all types of people, all different cultures, Muslims, Jews, different national, Orthodox. I've traveled the world extensively, and just for the nature of my job. And, you know, these are, if people knew that I'm a Christian, you know, I represent a faith. And you're in a way, I'm representing Christ, and I want to leave behind me, at least in this, in the image they have of me, of a person who did know Christ. You know, what's the best of Catholicism that we can give to the world, you know. And it's not easy. I don't think it's ever going to be easy, but I do have a lot to thank America for, because one of the people that I worked with, one of my bosses he was a permanent deacon. I won't mention his name, but he was an American permanent deacon, and he was a great help, kind of mentor. You know, whenever I'd be working in Georgia, you know, I'd go out and we'd meet up for a meal or something like that. So I have a lot to thank American Catholicism for, and, you know, there's a lot going on, but let's not sit back and say, okay, the things are not great. We have to be the agents of change in the church at this moment in time, and American Catholicism will lead the English speaking world. So it's very important. It's key. It's pivotal. Your podcasts go out to all of the English speaking world, and we have to challenge it.
What was I? Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I wanted to ask you both. What do you guys think about, because you hear Francis talking right now about married priests again, right? Do you think there is a place for a married priesthood? I don't mean universal priesthood marriage, right? Like, I think that if you're already a priest, you can't get married. Like, you took vows of celibacy.
Yeah.
But do you think there is any place for a married priesthood at all? I mean, we already have the ordinariate. They're allowed to get married, right? Now, I understand, if you really go back and understand the theology of even priests who were married, they also had to take vows of chastity. Like, the wife had to agree to it. So if you really do look into the past, I understand
Continence.
Yeah. Continent. Oh, yeah. Because chastity, even married people have to have chastity. So continence, right, where you're actually... But now in the East, right, the Eastern churches, they actually do not enforce that, right? They're allowed to have children. They're allowed to... So do you think there's any place in the Roman Rite for a married priesthood?
Well, I've been debating this a good bit. Yes, the short answer is yes, because even in the Latin Rite, you've a few married priests in America, really strong. Father, is it Father Z? Father Z?
Longnecker.
No.
Longnecker, yeah.
Longnecker.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody could accuse that man of being anything other than an excellent priest.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a real leader in the faith. So, is there a place in the Roman Rite for married men to step up and be priests? Yes, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. This is going to solve any problems in the church, and it's going to create a whole list of other problems.
Right. That's 100% right. And you're going to have it's always going to be abused, right? We abuse everything. We always create this little thing because we think it'll help, and then it turns into this mess. It's like everything we do, it turns into that. Like, I really do think there could be, because I think so many married men are so faithful. Right. And it's like they really believe the faith that you could get this segment of married men going in and becoming priests that would actually bring some orthodoxy into things, because it's not it's not a gay club like what you have going on right now, because there really is this situation of a gay club. Like, what you have is once you get the bishops in that if a bishop has that tendency, he's going to elevate other men with that tendency. And then before you know it, it's only men with that tendency being elevated. And that's kind of where we are right now. So you would think if you allowed some married men, but you're 100% right. It would wind up being abused in a way where I really think that the ultimate push is to allow same-sex married priests. Like, that's where they want to go.
I don't think we should consider it as a solution to, some of the problems and abuses, we have. But I think it does need to be looked at as like a possible contingency for just the point in time when we don't have enough priests, which is coming very soon. Right.
It's definitely, and if you look at that radio address Benedict gave back in the 60s, right, where he says, when they asked him about the future of the church, and he says, I think the church is going to lose a lot of its prominence in the culture, and I think it's going to become a smaller church, and I think it's eventually going to be rebuilt by people who actually believe the faith. And he actually goes into what he says about priests. He says, the priests aren't going to necessarily be formed in the seminaries like they are now. You're going to have men that have a day job who are clandestinely becoming priests, and because that was what the early church had to be at first. It was, they were having it in the catacombs. But I really do think that it might not be a year or two away, but I do think as time goes on, you're going to see the church. I mean, look, we all know that the church is going to suffer the same fate of our Lord, following him in his passion, death, and resurrection. So I don't know if that's in the immediate future. It's definitely in the future, no matter what.
Yeah. I suppose the reality, guys, and your family, if you were thinking, okay, a guy has a wife, he's got kids, and he might have a lot of kids. They have to be supported, and it's just looking after the well-being of priests and families. There's so many issues that will come with I mean, and then I mean, even my wife, now that I'm blogging, or if I'm going to do a talk, or she said, oh, you're away this evening, you're going to that prayer group, or you're doing this, because I do get called on, can you come to us, can you give us a talk? And I said, oh, okay, I'll do this. And then I said, well, Robert, you're never at home, you're all the time. And imagine if I was a priest, and you're called to last rites, you're called to a funeral, go here, like your family, like how will you plan your family life unless unless there's lots of people that can take up it's really not a job that you can just that marries with that
works well with marriage.
I mean, yeah. And I do know in the Orthodox world, because I did work in the East for a while, and I had friends, that were married Orthodox priests, and even there, a lot of the faithful used to tend to go to the celibate monks. So if you go to Mount Athos, all of the monasteries there, they are celibate monks.
So are the bishops. All the bishops in the East are celibate also. Yeah. You can't be elevated to bishop if you're married. So
exactly. So it'll be an interesting debate. I wouldn't rule out the priesthood to married men. That's my personal opinion, but I think it's a discipline that has
a good reason for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if the church, I could see it in the sense what I do know, and this is what the Pope will do. He's spoken about this for 4 to 5 years. He's already made his mind up. He's going to put it back to the bishops' conferences and say, look, if you want to ordain proven men, I leave it up to you. The discipline has been removed, and it'll be an interesting time in the church. That's where it's moving. It's going there.
It may lead to that. It may lead deeper into that passion, death, and resurrection. We'll see how it goes. But
putting things to bishops' conferences never go wrong,
boy.
right?
Oh, nothing. No. But it's going there, guys. Of all the things that the bishop, that the Pope can change in the synod. Of all of the things he can't change, he can't ordain women, and he can't, redefine marriage, but he can allow
remove that discipline.
He can do that, and he will do that, guys. We know this is going to happen. Now he'll just shove it back to bishops' conferences. It's like the permanent deaconate. Lots of countries and lots of dioceses have no permanent deacons and have no plan to introduce them, and others have loads of them. So it's going to be that same path. But there's lots of permanent deacons. I would ordain priests personally. I think they're excellent men. I trust them more. But
look, also like married men, like I take my role as a father and husband based on the priesthood, right? Like I am the priest of my home. And I take that role very seriously. I'm constantly trying to be a priest in my home. It's not something that men think about often enough. But we all get, the catechists are terrible in the church, and they didn't teach us something. No, you are the primary catechist for your children. Like if your children don't know the faith, that's not the church's fault. That's your fault as a priest and a father.
Exactly.
So really, we all have to cultivate that in our own families, so that it's not even so important. Like if you have good men as priests in the home, then the priesthood will follow our lead in the moment eventually. It should be the other way around, but unfortunately that's not where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. But remember, St. Patrick was the son of a deacon. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the priesthood. He would have come from a line of priests, probably in his family. His grandfather most probably would have been a priest, but his father was definitely a deacon.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go out and get Tim Flanders' last book, it was The City of God versus the City of. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that.
Well, hold on.
And I don't mean to dump some. Tim Flanders' last book was The City of God versus City of Man. He actually tells the story of St. Patrick. Now, I had always heard little snippets of the story of St. Patrick, but I had no idea that St. Patrick has like an amazing like miracle standoff with the Druids. And if you ever want to really, like, if you guys pick up Tim Flanders' book, it's in like the 2nd chapter or something. He tells the story of St. Patrick. And I remember being like so moved by it that I couldn't believe that this story has gone out of our like normal everyday conversations with other Catholics. It's an amazing story what Patrick did. And that's why Patrick is such a big deal to the Irish. And then we've turned it into this clown, holiday where everybody just gets drunk and, like you said, green beer and stuff like that. But no, St. Patrick literally brought the faith to Ireland, and we forget what the world looked like before Christianity civilized it. They were barbarians and savages, and they were having human sacrifice and all these awful things. And then all of a sudden you bring Christ the King into the mix and you have civilization gets built. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
For you, Robert, my question for Robert is witchcraft on the rise in Ireland? I wonder if Druid practice is on the rise.
Oh, for sure. New Age. It's massive. I was just looking there, New Age in general, and all of these practices are growing. Reiki and all of these when people don't have fallen away from the faith, they'll always look for something to replace it. So, of course, it's on the rise, and it's sad, but I suppose it's a challenge to us as well to show Ireland a greater power than what they place in these people who fumble in the dark, because that's what witchcraft is. It's just a pale imitation of supernatural, trying to imitate powers that to mesmerize people. So it's on the rise.
Even their spells are just bastardizations of the mass.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's very sad. But look, we lost him.
We lost Anthony. Oh no. I wonder if his internet went out.
No, we were talking about the witches. They must be casting a spell on him. Oh yeah.
I wonder if he'll come back here.
No problem.
Let me text him real quick. Let's see. While he's gone, one thing Anthony and I have talked about on a few shows is Enoch Burke.
Yes.
In one, how he's standing up, obviously, for Christianity, but two, how it's kind of disappointing that in Ireland it's coming from a Protestant and not a Catholic.
Yes. I suppose in the Catholic world, we've been looking on and saying, well, this guy was asked to use pronouns at school, and he stood up against it. Now, this was in a Protestant school. It wasn't, and he's a Protestant as well. So it's really it's strange to see this play out in this moment in time. The transgender movement as such, it isn't as big or as prominent in Ireland as in other countries. So I know in my daughter's school, it did happen. There was one student, and we didn't tend to kick up a fuss about it, because if you start to talk about it or protest it, it's really going to focus on one teenager. And so you have to be, okay, how are we going to play this out? Because now we weren't asked to do anything, or nobody was asked to say anything, and there was no, but I suppose you have that kind of delicate moment. Okay, how do we manage this when it's one specific person that, if you start talking about? So if I was to blog about a specific school and a specific student, then I'm responsible how that student will react, how they will take this criticism, how the family will react, and so forth. So from a Catholic point of view, you just have to tread carefully in this particular area. So you can talk about the phenomenon, which, is serious, because some of these students, they take a decision when they're not mature that can impact their whole life. If you're being sterilized as a teenager, I mean, maybe when you're in
Yeah.
your 20s, you think, well, maybe it wasn't good that I was sterilized or I had my
Right.
breasts removed or genitals removed. So it came to a fore in that Protestant school. The phenomenon exists in some Catholic areas, and my daughter, she spoke to me about it, and I just said, she wasn't asked to do anything. She was just saying, look, there's this guy that was dressing as a girl, and I said, okay, that's a specific student, and just be kind to that person. It's not like she agreed with the ideology. She didn't obviously agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to protest at the school, at the board of management, and so forth, and in the media, it's going to come back on. That student is going to hear about it. You're going to elevate that student into the media. So I suppose that was that I just took the approach. We just spoke about it as a family, and there was a lot more to the story than people knew about, and different issues. And I suppose you have to put all this in context. So it's not easy, because
Right.
in today's modern culture, they push this as some solution, and it's not a solution. But you're seeing the result of years of different problems that have come to the fore. So what emotional abuse could have been in that person's
Right.
life, because they're looking for some solution to their problems, and suddenly this modern world has given them a solution. Hey, you're not happy. Maybe you should be a girl, or maybe you should be a boy. This is the solution, and it's like this phenomenon. He's back.
I'm so sorry, guys. My internet went down, and I had to actually just jump on my phone. It's so bad.
Here I am in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, with better internet than New York.
Well, my power went out. The whole house.
Oh.
The power went down, so everything shut down on me.
Oh gosh.
And I know Rob was probably a little nervous on his own. So.
Yeah.
No. I'll tell you, Robert. The thing is, we had. I told you before we came in, like we wanted to interview you first, and then the next time we have you on, I'm really hoping we could just get you on for a regular Off the Rails episode where it's not so much about us talking to each other, but us talking more about the cultural things going on. So we tend to pick like a Catholic topic that maybe is going on, and then we just like to pick goofy videos and stuff, and then we just make some commentary on that stuff. So it'd be awesome.
Okay.
It'd be awesome to get you on for something like that.
That's good. Yeah, no problem. I'd love to be on. You'll get the Irish slant on it. What I think, anyway.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I had a blast. I'm so grateful that you were so willing to just come on with a couple of strangers, man. I love seeing that guys like that I reach out to are quick to say, absolutely, I'll come on and hang out with you guys. Yeah, I've met so many cool people on here, and you're definitely one of them.
Can I just ask one quick question, Robert? Where does the name of your channel come from?
So, I'm a Nugent, and the motto of my family is De Crevi. It means determined or decreed. So I just played on that, and as I said, when I was growing up, we grew up in a little town called Delvin, and my uncles and my family used to talk about, oh, this castle is our family, and this castle is and it was just all of the generations, that practically 1,000 years. So I just played on the family name.
That's awesome.
The motto. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's very cool that like you have such a connection to your past like that. That like I was telling my daughter last night that I don't know anything about my family beyond my great grandfather. So for me, my ancestors are the saints. Like if it's not for our Catholic ancestry, I'm like a rootless. I don't know anything beyond my great grandfather. I don't know anything beyond that. So.
No, it's family is our history is it means a lot to me. So I suppose that when you hear about the different things that the Nugents did around Europe, it kind of impacts us. So
my family name, actually the etymology. So my last name's Abadi, and it actually goes back to Saint Anthony of the Desert, Saint Anthony the Abbot. So that's. My actual patron saint is Saint Anthony the Abbot.
Yeah, that's right. Abate. Yeah.
So, Rob, we don't know what's Blighton, Rob. What's your
Well, it's English. Matter of fact, there's a rather well-known English children's author with the same name, Enid Blyton, but I
Yeah.
don't know its etymology really, unfortunately.
Oh, the one thing that just reminded me of the one thing I did want to ask you, Enoch Burke, because that's
We
the main
we talked
story.
about him.
Oh, get out of here! Are you kidding me?
I needed to fill the air with something.
Oh no! Where is the Catholic Enoch Burke? Is what I want to know, because he's a Protestant guy. I want to know, where is the Catholic version of that?
Yeah, so I was as I was just saying, and in my daughter was in school, and that phenomenon occurred where a student has decided that this is what they want to do, and with my daughter and myself, we were just discussing, how should I approach it, how should we talk about this. If I protested the way Enoch Burke did in the Catholic school about what was going on, you'd have shone a light on a specific. I would have shone a light on a specific teenager, right?
Yeah.
And their problems.
And their problems. Now, and this particular teenager had other things that were there. So, and I'm not here judging. I'm not here wanting to say anything about this person at all. I'm just saying I spoke to my daughter about it. I could have blogged and we could have complained and stuff like this, but all of that attention, that media, would have been shone on one specific teenage boy. Okay. And then you're responsible, the pressure you put on that boy, you're responsible how he reacts and what could happen or what could not happen. Now, I fundamentally disagree with that movement. I don't think any child should be taking hormones or having themselves sterilized as a teenager. It is horrific. But how we blog and how we talk and how we protest, we're then responsible if it doesn't go our way, and say that teenager goes into depression and takes their life.
Yeah.
Because, it's on you then. Were you right to protest in front of a school because there was one confused
thought of
teenager?
it from that angle. That's a great perspective. I've never thought of it from that angle. It's like you don't realize you bringing the media circus there.
Yeah.
You don't realize what you're doing. Like, and is there a better way to actually care for the individual person in that moment than it is to make yourself the center of the show?
Yeah.
Because that's really what you're doing, right? You're making yourself the center of the show, and this is what I think. It's like,
yeah. Like it's, I suppose we just have to be. That's all I say is tread carefully when you're dealing with teenagers, because how you treat them, and you're then responsible if they react to that. So, I prefer to stay out of that debate for the moment on specific locations and specific people.
Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree with the transgender ideology pushed on teenagers. I think it is horrific. But how we deal with it as grown adults, we have to be careful. And I think you have to go with reason. I mean, we're created male and female. There are thousands of differences between us. Giving people hormones and cutting off their genitalia or their breasts is not going to solve your problem.
No, these are mental health, and a lot of them have to do with the most of the time it's the mother, right? Let's be honest. Most of the time it's the mother feeding this poison to the children. It's Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and for us to take it out on the child who's actually suffering whatever mental anguish they're going through, that they feel they need to do something like that they're not the root of the problem. It's whatever led to that person going that route is really the root of the problem that we need to try to figure out a better remedy than just mocking, right? Like we do a lot of mocking things that we disagree with. So
I mean, that was my take on it. We just tread carefully in this area when you're dealing with teenagers in schools. So I think Enoch Burke, he's doing his own campaign in this area, and I understand the man. I really do. I really understand. And I don't know if I wouldn't want to, affirm somebody's delusion either. I personally don't believe in affirming your delusion, but I'm not going to go out and make a political battle with a teenager. It's not going to happen. No, not.
Yeah. All right. Robert, this was an awesome conversation, man. I'm so grateful that you came on with us. We'd love to do it again. With the time difference, it probably would have to be on a Saturday again. So we'll have to figure that out and work that out. But thank you so much, man.
No problem. God bless.
Well, I was just gonna say, where can everyone find your work, Robert?
I'm just on YouTube at the moment. They've asked me to put myself on other podcasts, but I'm just on De Crevi Determined to Be Catholic on YouTube.
Can I make one suggestion? Get on Spiritus TV.
I have started an account. I am I'm trying slowly to upload stuff there.
They're going to eventually have a live streaming and an app, and when that happens, we're going to be pushing. We're going to be pushing that very hard, because I would love to eventually never even have to worry about YouTube stuff. And it looks like that's going to be the Catholic YouTube once they get the technology to catch up with things. For now, we're just kind of uploading things after we go. But when they get the live streaming and the app done, that's going to be a huge, huge thing.
No, I'm going there because there's some topics you can't talk about. So I had a meeting with the guys that run Spiritus TV. I have it, and you'll see one of my videos has gone up there. So
awesome.
Great.
Yeah, Daniel's good people.
He is, exactly.
So we also, guys, please like, subscribe, the usual. We're terrible at promoting ourselves and grifting. You're supposed to do that at the beginning of the episode. We never do. So if you guys can, please throw us a bone, hit like, subscribe, share the video, because YouTube is definitely not going to like this one. So if it's going to be out from you guys, sending it out to your friends.
Okay.
All right, Rob,
God bless you.
Unite the clans. Enoch. Let's go.